Okay.
Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I have a special guest, Brandi Mitchell, and we're going to be talking about her new book. But before we do that, I'm going to go into some background information about her. She's a graduate of Florida A&M University. She majored in business. While at the university, she was a member of FAMU's Marching 100, the famous marching band at the university. Later on, after graduating, she went into the into the beauty industry. She met a lot of celebrities and directors and producers while in the industry. She has since gone on to create her own business. She is the CEO of Chorus Media. She also has written 4 books, and the most recent book is this book right here, Point and Drive for Life, an excellent book. And we're going to be discussing that book during this Google Hangout. She is also the founder of Point and Drive seminars and other programs. So right now, I really want to take this opportunity to thank Brandi for joining this Google Hangout. She's someone that we went to the same high school. I have to mention that. We went to the same high school, Mackenzie High School in Detroit, Michigan. And we've been friends on Facebook for quite some time. And I see that she posts a lot of inspirational videos and content. So she has been one of the people that has really inspired me. Just seeing her level up in life is just a true inspiration. And when I heard about this recent book, I said, I have to have her on this program. You know, I have to bring her to the show and I have to get this book, you know. So I went out and bought her book, and I encourage you all to buy it as well. It's an excellent book. It's an easy read, but it's very inspirational. It's something that you can use as a reference book for life in general. So with that, you know, we can get started, and I'll just ask you the first question. Can you tell people a little bit more about yourself and about your career path, how you went from being a member of a band to going into studying business to going into the beauty industry and then creating your own company?
Woo. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's been an amazing. The one thing I really love about social media is that you can connect with people from all over the world, you know, in different moments and times in your life. So thank you for having me on first. So I would say that my life has been very peppered in terms of my career. I started out actually in business and marketing. My passion was to go into business and marketing. And to be honest with you, I was trying to make a beeline out of Detroit so fast that when I saw the Florida A&M Marching 100, literally, it was just like, oh, okay, I hear they have an amazing business school, right? I'm going there. I never even checked to see that they didn't have a marketing. I wasn't able to get a marketing degree. This is a true story. I was just so adamant that I wanted that culture and I wanted that experience. And I was just so absolutely sold on the band. And I knew they had a good business school. When I got down there, I changed my major to psychology because there wasn't a dedicated major at that time for marketing, but I'm sure there is one now. And so psychology, you know, at the end of the day, it was still always about how can I help people? You know, how can I help people? I think that was still and always has been at the root of who I am. How can I help people in some kind of way? And so I just really honestly fell into the beauty industry at FAMU. It was crazy because oddly enough, and it's really the best solution for entrepreneurship. There was a problem. You know, entrepreneurship is all about what are the problems that you solve for people. The problem was being from Detroit. We were so accustomed to these really fly hairstyles, right? And I got down to Tallahassee, and at the time that was not their thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so after a couple of bad experiences, I said, you know, next time I go home, I'm going to really figure this whole, I'm going to just find a basic style and I'm just going to duplicate it over and over again. But I really am all about like excellence. So I mastered it so well that other people were saying, hey, who did that? was like, it was me, you know, and they were like, oh, is this what you do? And a broke college student, you're going to say yes, right? when there's money involved, you're going to say yes. And it really honestly, and I talk about this in the book, it was really a hidden talent that I had that I had been actually doing when I was younger that I didn't recognize. You know, I was put in a position where I saw an opportunity. I talk a lot about opportunity in the book. I saw an opportunity to earn money, broke college student, had a natural talent that was sitting there laying dormant. And it became, now 20 plus years later, I can't even explain all the things that I've done from that. But it started off with me seizing an opportunity. I had a talent, seized an opportunity. Someone recognized it. It was a young lady whose mom actually had a vocational school in Detroit. She said, listen, I've grown up around this all my life, and I know talent. You need to go to cosmetology school. And at the time I was thinking grad school, psychology, you got to go for X amount of years. This is how I'll pay my way through grad school. And I went to cosmetology school at night. I would go to FAMU in the daytime. Then I would catch a bus to Lively Vocational School, and I would go to cosmetology school. Then I would catch a bus and do the graveyard shift at Greyhound, the bus company, and then start all over again. And on the weekends, I was shampooing the salons. So I was like in hustle mode, in grind mode. And my mindset has always been, if you put in the work, back then it was, if you put in the work then, you will have options later. I just had no idea that it would take me into the industry. And so I spent, as an artist, I started off with hair, and I quickly saw that it was about leveraging what you have, like leveraging things. And I saw that the hair and the makeup artists, the people who could do both, were more employable. And I was in the salons. This is a long story into what I'm saying, but it makes sense, right? I went into the salons, and I was, you know, interning there, apprenticing there. But I went on a photo shoot for a group called Commission. Commission they're like gospel greats, you know, right up there. It's Commission and it's the Winans. And so a good friend of mine was in the group Commission, Mitchell Jones. So I went on their photo shoot, and that was the first time I was on set. And when I got on set, it was just like done deal. That felt like home to me. And I couldn't explain what it was. But here again, we're talking about, in the book, I talk about my passion journey. And that was, how do you take something that is an innate talent, which for me is creativity. I'm an artist. So my artistry is going to come out in different ways. That's why I could go from hair, which is artistry. I love to cook. That's artistry, is creative. Storytelling and writing, all creative. So in the book, I really talk about, you have this underlying thing of who you are. But as you evolve, if you will let it, it'll take you in different places. So for me, when I got on set, that was a solution to me, because I was in the salons and I was saying, this is cool, but I wanted the freedom of learning different things and experiencing different things. So when I saw set and I saw the TV, the cameras, they were telling a story. That was the role into film and TV. And I really honestly couldn't have plotted this, because I didn't know it. But when I think back to it, if I hadn't really become a celebrity makeup and hair artist, I don't know if I would have, you know, made a film, and I'm not sure. And that's why I always talk about in the book about really being aware of opportunities, and I call them ignition moments, which are moments, a time of things that happen that change the trajectory of your life. Because for me, being on set, I wasn't just paying attention to, oh, okay, I'm doing this person's hair or makeup. There's a lot of hurry up and wait when you're on set. So, and especially when you're working with celebrity artists. So it's a very sacred space. So I started watching the producer, the director. I was watching the lighting. I always had to watch the lighting because of the talent. I was watching like everything that was moving. And even when we would shoot different television shows, I would keep all of the sides and all of the production work. It was always like I knew that that was my next step because I would keep it and I would study it. So for me, it was always about, and that's one of the things I encourage people to, you know, don't stay inside of a box, that every opportunity that you get, you need to really be present for it, because inside of it, if you are open, it's always opportunity inside of it. If you would just allow yourself to be able to be present and be in a mindset where you're always learning, but at the same time balancing service, like serving people. Like I've always been of the mindset of how can I serve this person, or how can I make whatever it is that they're doing be better. So that's a long way around it, but that portion of it turned into storytelling, you know, writing books, the filmmaking. And at some point I just wanted to transition out of, I'm just about evolving. At some point on set, I said, there's another tier to this, right? This is like, then you get there and everybody thinks that that life is so glamorous. You're working 15 hours. The higher up you go on the total pole, like the bigger the celebrity you work with, they actually sometimes want to pay you less because you're getting so many perks in other areas. That didn't really make sense to me, you know. So I moved into entrepreneurship, working with coaches and consultants and speakers, etc., and just leveraging, again, a term we call in band is called transfer of learning, where you take something from one area and you make it applicable on another side. So for me, I took, you know, that, oh, you work with celebrities and you have to groom them and be really, really on point in terms of being very attentive to them. Why wouldn't you just take this over into the entrepreneurial space with people who they are their brand? They are a celebrity of their brand, and really help them be able to maintain their look on a day-to-day basis. And that's how I transitioned. That's how I began transitioning into having, that's when I became CEO. I went from, you know, okay, you're a service provider and you're someone who, you know, like that you service people, to, no, you own this business and there are legs to it. Now I transitioned at that moment, which was right around, has it been 10 years now? Almost 10 years ago when I I transitioned over, and that's when I transitioned. And from that, it's been kind of like, you know, wow, long answer, but
you made the point, and it's real clear, and I'm glad you provided that information. So before we get into like the discussion about your book, so who are some of the favorite celebrities that you worked with? Like, who are some of your favorites, like out of all the people you've worked with over the years?
So I mean, so here's the thing. I don't really know that I have favorites. I probably have more so favorite moments, like iconic moments that I feel like I was at a space in time like that. If I had to say my best and my favorite space in time, it was probably on the set of 8 Mile, like two times on the set of 8 Mile. I mean, one was the cipher, that famous cipher now that everybody duplicates. Like if they were to call cut, you would have seen me right in the left hand of that screen, sitting there witnessing it, like sitting there watching Eminem. He was spitting something different literally every time. At genius. Every time he was freestyling and he was spitting something different. So everything inside of that whole scene was so organic, and the energy was so palpable. It was just like, oh my God, this is a moment in time. This is a moment in time. And you didn't expect it. I mean, I had just had my son, Corey. Corey is about to be 18. Okay. So I was so
go into the opportunity issue. I want to talk to you about that in more opportunity.
Okay, so don't go too deep. Don't go too deep. Yeah. But I would have to say, to me, like, those are the times. It's just kind of like those iconic moments, you know, that to me, it was just like, man, I'm standing in a place in time right now, you know, that I'll never be in again with this particular time. Okay, this is a part of history right now. I've had a lot of those. So it's been more so about the moment than the person. That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So in your book, you mentioned how you were having a conversation with a photographer that happened to be in the marching band at one point with you. So can you tell us, like, what inspired you to write this particular book?
So what inspired me to write the book? So to talk about the book, I'd have to talk about the film, Point and Drive, the actual Point and Drive documentary. For me, it's always been, you know, going from book to film. From the beginning, I knew it. As a matter of fact, with the film, I first thought it was a book. I initially started off with the idea. We had just come back. It was two trigger moments. We had just come back from the homegoing service of my band director, Dr. William P. Foster, who was this iconic man who made all this history in terms of music, just in general, just music. And it was such a sobering experience, because it was one of those experiences where you're like, man, first of all, I was really a part of something great. Secondly, man, this is a story that needs to be told. And then I was looking at all of the people from all of these generations, and I was just thinking that we were all connected by the same thread of music. And I just kept thinking, like, wow. And everybody was in different careers, but they were all successful at what they were doing, no matter what it was. What people don't understand about the band is that probably only 10% of the people that march in bands and music programs are actually music majors. So that means that 90% of the people go into other industries, but the industries that they go into, they're extremely successful. Like, they're always pioneering, or if you talk to people, they will say that, oh, they have this excellent work ethic, or they rise to the top of the ranks. They're usually up at the top. And it is that marching band factor that I talk about in the book. So just for me, I just started recognizing in appreciation and gratitude how grateful I was to have, you know, been introduced to this at 9 years old, and to still be in contact with these beautiful people. That was the first step. And then I was doing a photo shoot. I was directing a photo shoot, and I hired a gentleman named Corey Cottrell, who was in the marching band with me and in the musical fraternity and sorority. We were in the same chapter. And here we are at this shoot, and both of us are perfectionists. And he's like, you know, he's got to get the shot right. And we're both vibing on the whole thing. But he's like, Brandi, this comes from the 100. Like, I have to do everything perfect. Like, I have to do everything right. And I said, I feel the same way. You know, it was the first time I had heard it articulated that way. And that later that day, I started really, well, not that day, but that week, I really started thinking about, like, this makes sense, that it would make sense that you would be excellent at whatever you do, because they conditioned you to be excellent. And if you look at any successful business person, at the root of success is discipline. If you're not disciplined, you can't do anything. Like, I mean, literally in life, you can't do anything, down to relationships, or even if you want to lose a couple of pounds, you can't do anything without discipline. The foundation of that parallel with the whole idea that you're learning music, you got to multitask, you're learning music, you have to work together, you have to become this excellent performer. When you think about all of those elements, and I had never saw it that way, I was like, why would you not be extremely successful? Because nobody was talking about it that way. So to me, the book, I thought I was going to write a book that paralleled this whole thing, but it turned into a documentary. I heard, no, do a documentary. And so we went on this journey of doing a documentary. So I knew I would always get back around to a book. But that's basically how it happened.
And where does the title come from? Can you explain the title, Point and Drive? What does it mean? And, you know, what's the origin of it?
Yeah, well, Point and Drive. So Point and Drive is a concept that every Marching 100 member in Florida A&M is given foundationally as the way that we march. It's a concept. And when you first come down there to enter the band, you're drilled on it over and over again. It's what makes the bands have such great precision marching. So it's actually a concept, a marching concept. So it's really like pointing and driving into the ground with your feet. But it really parallels to life, because the idea of it is point is about really having focus and direction. And you can't do anything if you don't have focus, direction, laser focus and direction. And then drive, meaning that you have to be able to have the discipline and the tenacity to reach the goal no matter what, because it's not that situations or challenges won't come. It's that you have to have a relentless drive to go forward to get the things that you want in life. So when I looked at it, it was crazy, because the first thing I heard the name, and we always used it traditionally. I mean, the band has been established for, since 1946. When I heard it, it was just, it was really, it resonated with me, because I was like, no, you have to have focus and drive to do anything in life. And so that's where it came from. And in other bands, you're going to hear about drive. You're going to probably always hear about drive, in some type of respect. But specifically what I was talking about when I thought of the title was Point and Drive, because it was something that is so cherished, and it is a concept that has become a lifestyle for many of us.
Now, your book is about 10 principles for playing big in life and for success. Can you briefly identify those principles and summarize what each principle is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 10 principles, they spell out point and drive. And so the first one, P, is for passion, which really you can't do anything in life without first being passionate about it. And for me, the book breaks down the 10 principles. It parallels it from band and from the aspect of life. It's a metaphor for it. So in the book, I use both sides. And so while my first passion was the band, it was music, it triggered the creativity. But if you're going to really, really, I feel like, live out purpose, you have to pursue what you're passionate about. It's just about putting, in the book, I talk about, I also coach and consult with people. And the one thing that I do is I talk about how you take your passion, put a plan to it, produce it to make it profitable. It's not about just having a passion like, oh my God, I love to do it. That's great. Love to do it. But if you intend on doing it for business, you got to wrap a plan around it for it to profit. And a lot of people get afraid there because they don't attribute, I don't know why, they don't attribute sometimes passion with profit. But the two worlds do go together. So that's the first principle. I'm very passionate about that, as you can see. O is for opportunity. It's about being aware and cognizant to receive and act on opportunity. Everything in my life has been about, I saw a door open, or either I kicked the door open and I ran through it. It's all been, and a lot of people get the opportunities around them, but they don't seize them. And to me, that's one of my passion points here. One of the things, your passion is something that either you really love or you're very irritated about. I get irritated when I see people who are extremely talented not live out their passion. So they don't seize opportunities. So O is for opportunity. Principle 3 is ignition moments. And ignition moments was I originally read about ignition moments by author named Daniel Coyle, who wrote a book called The Talent Code. And in that, he talked about ignition moments are these moments in time where you see something or someone and you identify with that as, I could be them. This could happen for me. And those moments, if you take advantage of those moments, they can literally change the trajectory of your life. So for me, my ignition moment, the biggest ignition moment, that the reason why I'm here right now, because 30 years ago, I know I just aged myself. 30 years ago, 1988, literally. This weekend, this is the irony of all this. Southern University, it was Southern University's homecoming. They were playing Florida A&M. My band director from Detroit, Mr. Bobby Brown, took us to that homecoming as a band. And I saw Florida A&M's Marching 100, and I made a life decision. That was an ignition moment. So ignition moments in business or in your life, they always happen. It's about taking action and knowing how to take action thereafter to really go into your next phase, the next principle, which is Nourish. Nourish is about being in an environment where you can thrive, being in an environment where you can grow. And it doesn't mean comfy all the time. It usually is uncomfortable. One of the things I talk about with my clients is that, you know, if you're playing big enough, if you're scared, you should be a little nervous. If you're too comfortable about what you're doing, you're never playing a big enough game. You should be nervous. Your next level should make you nervous. That's how you know you're playing a big enough game. So if you talk about band, for me, it was going into an atmosphere where I was, in the book, I talk about being uncultured. I didn't know their culture. Matter of fact, I was the opposite of their culture. I had been, all of my band members and my band director went to Southern University. Southern University and Florida A&M are two completely different types of marching styles, music style, everything. So I was uncultured. I was dropped in a situation where I recognized that I wanted to be there, but I had to open myself up and forget everything that I knew in order to become who I needed to be. So nourishment is all about, you need to be in the right atmosphere, around the right people, cut the people off that do not elevate you to where you need to be. You can't, you know, because all of your environment really affects your outcome.
So who are the right people that you need to be around, and who are the wrong people that you shouldn't be around? You talk about it in your book, but you could explain.
Yeah, so to me, when I say Nourish, and that's why I say my experience in that particular band, I call it like it's an all-star band. They are, you know, it's the best band, period. I just think you need to be around people that are 5 to 10 steps ahead of you. I really do. 5 to 10 steps ahead of you. If you're like the hottest person, the smartest person in your group, you need another group, because you are never going to grow. If you are the smartest person in the group, you need to be put in an atmosphere where you got 5 to 10 people who are literally like you can glean from, and it makes you want to get better, you know, and the atmosphere. So it's not always, you know, I've been in, so let me say this. There is a blessing in being in uncomfortable environments. And there's a blessing in being in environments where it feels good, like all the energy is positive, and you can grow that way too. That will depend on where you are in your life. We all have them. We all have them, you know, in terms. So people who you aspire to be, or they're 5 to 10 steps ahead of you, the energy is good in terms of like, you feel like, I want to be more. I want to do more. I felt that way. Even when I was in high school, I only had like a few friends, small circle. It wasn't about having a whole lot of noise around me. And I think people who are leaders, really honestly, sometimes they will tell you they don't run in big, huge crowds, because you have to me, people influence you that are around you. So somebody's influencing somebody. Either you're influencing them or they're influencing you. So to have people around you that maybe don't believe as big as you do, they have their own baggage, you need to cut them, because it's not going to be productive, because they're going to put their stuff in that atmosphere where you're trying to grow. It will be counterproductive, you know. And so, and I talk about it even down to spouse. You know, I've been married for 21 years now. Be 21 years in December. And people don't understand this, while they're just like randomly like dating and, you know, et cetera. That who you marry or who you allow to influence again, even romantically, it really impacts your entire life.
That's
so right. I have to tell people, like, I'm like, you guys don't understand this. You know, I thank God for my husband. You know, I mean, when I think about it, I'm just like, everything that I've experienced over the last 20, I've been in some very interesting places, right? It takes a very secure man, you know, confident and loving and just all of those things to be able to have a wife that is doing those types of things and in no kind of way always saying, hey, go do it. Yes, I got it. You know, to be able to be like that. He was so amazing with Point and Drive. And so I tell people, like, can you imagine having a dream or feeling like you're supposed to pursue something and the person that you love the most is not riding with that? That, I mean, it's just, are you kidding me right now? And vice versa. You can't see the vision of who they are and you hold them back. Oh my God. Like, it doesn't. So I always tell people, like, when it comes to marriage and even people who are dating right now, I tell my son, like, this whole thing of somebody is influencing somebody. So if they're not making you better, or if there's not something that, you know, in some kind of way you see that there's something that, some way that you guys can grow together, you're wasting time. I feel like you're wasting time. Like, why am I wasting my space and my air and my breath on something that doesn't, like, why? Like, you could affect my whole future. Heaven forbid, if you having sexual relations and now you got, you know, are you kidding me right now? So the Nourish part of Point and Drive, I had to talk about it because, like, your environment dictates how far or how fast, you know, you can go.
Yeah, so I'll ask you a question about passion and then you can go into the other principles. So, like, how does somebody know what their passion is? Like, how do you discover your passion, and how do you take that passion to the next level? You know, beyond it just being like what you describe as a hobby, if you're not making money from it or doing anything with it. How do you move it to the next level?
So I always, the first thing when I'm coaching people, I will ask them, when you were younger and it wasn't about money, time, no type of constraints, what did you enjoy doing? That's the first question I always ask people, because usually it's a very big indicator of who you are, that passion lies. It usually doesn't change. What happens is it gets tainted along the way. So, for example, with me, I was always creating. I was always repurposing something, always. And I was always recreating, and I was always, in some kind of way, telling story. Okay. If I trace back to what I was doing for hours and hours and hours, I would stand up in my imaginary room like it was a lot of people there, and I was talking and speaking. I had no idea that I would become a speaker or in any kind of way be inspirational, but I would do it for hours. And the same thing with repurposing. I was always about taking something from one phase to the other. Transformation. It was always about transformation. That's what I do essentially, is transformation. So the first thing I always ask people when they're talking about passion, I'm like, take all of the preconceived notions away of what you can, you cannot do. Now, what would you be doing if it wasn't about money? Because usually it's right there, honest to God. And I have them start there, because usually you know what it is. Just life happens and somebody tells you can't make money from that, or somebody tells you can only do it this particular kind of way, or you're too old to do it, or, you know, they give you all these different things and all these blocks come up and all of a sudden you lose sight of it. But usually your passion is always living there with you. So you start there. You start there. And usually the person's passion, people tell them about it all the time. It's something that they do, like they're inhaling and exhaling, like it's there. Like people always call them for it. You know, even if they're working in a job, that is the thing that they're known for. So it's usually there. Now, in terms of how do you transfer that? So for example, I will use the whole beauty for a great example. So I was doing hair and makeup for celebrities. How I transferred that into an actual company was I was literally sitting on a tour. It was like this 6-week tour, 6 or 7 week tour. And they put me in this area where I was doing consulting over and over again. I didn't recognize that was what I was doing, but I was consulting. And I got frustrated because of the constraint of what we were doing. So we were working maybe 13 hours back to back. I didn't like that I didn't have freedom. And in my frustration, I started trying to look for another way. When I saw what it was consulting. So it's not that you don't like beauty, it's that you don't like the method of what you're doing. You don't like that you don't have freedom and you don't feel like you're being paid enough. So the passion never changed. But the way that I was doing it and the way that I was able to earn income at a greater level changed. That was a mindset change because I had to go from service provider, which a lot of us have to do. We had to go from providing a service to being able to see that the worth and the value of it, if it was packaged right, could be more valuable. So oftentimes, this is with anything. Like my husband is a personal trainer, but he started a virtual training online where he has people all over the world and he's coaching and consulting them. That was something that came out of necessity to turn into a whole nother business model. So somebody could say, oh, you're a trainer. Or now he was sitting there coaching the people all the time, that entire time. And he put on the additional thing of virtual. It changed the complete business model. So your passion, everybody has the ability to take what it is that they're gifted at and turn it into a business. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're like the best peanut butter and jelly maker. Promise to God. You can turn it into another layer. And that's the thing that I do in my Brand and Business Academy, because I'm always about like, no, you can turn it into an actual tangible business. So that's where it starts.
Okay, so now we can go back into the other principles. We left off on Nourish. I guess talent is the next one. Yeah.
Talent, principle 10, talent is all about what is it that you're gifted at, what is it that you have expertise in. But in the book, I really talk about that there are a lot of talented people, but to take, coming from Detroit, Michigan, and on any given Sunday, you can go into a church and they will outblow any person that has a contract right now. I mean, like literally. So it's not for lack of talent. It's how do you polish and perfect and then package the talent that you have. So principle 10 is to principle 5 is all about how do you take that talent and cultivate it and turn it into something that really is marketable. Taking a talent and polishing it to the point that it is presentable, or it is operating at a sense of excellence where you feel good about what it is that you do. Because a lot of people have talent, but they don't take it to the next level. And any great performer didn't just say, any great performer didn't just come out and say, I'm going to start singing. They were singing and practicing their craft like they were on stage for years and years and years and years. And so one of the things to me in band that made us so great was the art of, and this is moving into the next principle, which is discipline. It was the art, discipline, and repetition, which is really all about how do you practice with a system in anything that you do to become excellent and to become the lead in that. And that comes from the discipline of doing it when you don't want to do it. That's principle 6, the discipline of doing it when you don't want to do it, which was for us, you know, we love the performance, but we had to practice for hours and hours and hours and hours. Repetition is what system do you have in place to assure your success so that you're going to get better? And so repetition for us in band was that methodical system of how we practice, literally. And in business and in life, you're only going to be as successful as the systems that you have in place. Like, you're not going to be successful if you have to start all over again every time it's time for you to do something. Any career, I don't care if it's sales, I don't care, any career, you have to have some type of system for you, and you have to repeat it repetitively for you to be able to be successful. So those are that's 6 and 7. And then, I'm going ahead. Do you want me to keep going?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Principle 8 is influence. And influence is all about, you should get to the point where you're making impact. Like, once you've gone through all that and you start really mastering your craft, you should be in the position where you become a leader of your industry. For us, you know, once you went through the band, you eventually came to the point where you were some type of leadership. And to me, that's such a sacred place, because you should get to the point where, to me, true leadership is that, you know what, you're doing something so awesome that I want to model you. This is across the board. You're doing something so amazing and so awesome that I'm inspired by looking at you, and I want to model you. And to me, you know, that's a true leader, that they're leading by example, you know. And in the book, I really talk about being a servant leader, because a lot of people jump to leadership because they want to boss up and they want to, you know, have the status. True leaders are servants. Like, their first mindset is, how can I serve my community? How can I serve my company? How can I serve my customer? And then in that whole avenue of service, they become positioned to influence. They become positioned to influence. That's why I get frustrated sometimes in our little Insta famous society, where people want to jump to the front of the line, but they have no type of foundation to be able to stand on. So you may jump to the front of the line and you have all these followers and all, that's great. But if you can't really serve those people, you know, because you really haven't put in the time, you know, or you don't care about them. Because to me, true leaders care about the people that they are leading, that they're impacting and influencing. And so, yeah, I feel like for me, I had great examples in the band. I mean, starting with my band directors, I felt like they were the greatest leaders that I saw, just, you know, just extreme models that made me say, that set a bar for me in my life, that I said, oh, this is what excellence is. That's principle 10. But I just did, you know, a great leader should put you in a mindset where you're like, oh, okay, that's what I want to be, you know? So, yeah.
So in your book, you talk about the impact of the band director at Mackenzie High School, Bobby T. Brown. So can you tell the audience more about that? Like, how did he impact your life individually, and how did he impact the band members? There's an example where a member wasn't at practice or wasn't present, and he went out to find that member. Can you tell the audience about that?
Yeah, so I in Detroit, Bobby L. Brown, he came from Louisiana. My band director, he came from Louisiana, and he came to Detroit, and he basically is responsible, and a lot of people don't know this, but he basically is responsible for the connection between all of the kids now. They have a connection to HBCU bands and Detroit, because he had this vision that he saw, you know, that was early 80s, you know, crack was just coming into, you know, drugs were just coming into the neighborhoods heavy. And we were fighting for our lives. He saw an opportunity and said, give them music, give them this culture, the HBCU, historically Black colleges and universities, let me give them this culture. So he brought that culture to McKenzie and created this massive band that became this unifier for that area. It literally became this unifier for this area. And in him doing that, he would lobby and campaign at these universities and get band scholarships for us. So imagine someone, and I always tell, that's why I'm such an advocate today about music education, because he sent literally at least 40 kids at one time were literally at one university all on band scholarships. This was unheard of, especially back then. So he got the concept of, I'm going to model this band, I'm going to bring it to Detroit. And we were partakers of his drive. And so literally, these are kids who, you know, literally were being pulled back and forth, life, death, period. So what you were talking about in the book, I wrote about one of our band members who I'll never forget the story of, like, Mr. Brown, literally, he had missed practice, and Mr. Brown heard that he was at this drug house, and Mr. Brown got in his car with his signature Zorro hat, and he got in his car and he went to that drug house and went bossed up with all of those drug dealers and was like, you are coming with me. You're coming to practice. And, you know, like, I think like that same year, or either it was the next year, that guy was down at Southern University on a full scholarship. Like, to me, when I look at all my brothers, you know, a lot of brothers, I'm the only one to this day that went to Florida A&M. All the rest of them went to Southern University, Jackson State, University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. And when I just think about that, one man made that difference in all of these people's lives, and especially in Detroit. Down south, I live in Atlanta now. This is band country. Like, it's band country. Like, it's amazing. It's a lot of amazing bands. You know, like, the band culture is still cool, kind of, to be in the band. Detroit, like, we were like, we don't know. It was like literally so foreign to us. So this man brings in this culture, and all these kids go on to get, you know, a chance to go to college. And at that time that we were watching school, we saw School Days. Like, we wanted the culture. The Cosby Show, A Different World, we wanted the culture. We were like, man, where is that happening at? So he brought that culture to Detroit. And the end result is me sitting here talking to you, still excited and giddy, like I'm, you know, 16, talking to you about band, and that it was this pathway. It was this pathway. And that's why I'm an advocate for music education. I have a foundation where that's what I'm an advocate for, because I'm thinking, like, this was a roadway in to life. And, you know, almost any kid can pick up an instrument and learn it. Like, they can't all play basketball. They can't all do the fencing, you know, and they may not have it academically. But do you know how many people can go to school on music scholarships and go in there and get a degree? So I'm an advocate now for that, because I just want to, you know, for me, it's about showing the impact of what music does. And then me, I just some kind of way became a poster girl for it, because I'm very unconventional in my career path. So I just kind of became this poster girl, advocate. You know, that's why I'm so passionate about getting the message of the film and the book out. And I just have a different way of doing it, because I took it and allowed it to play out in my life.
So you touched on HBCUs in your commentary about Bobby Brown. So can you talk about like the importance of HBCUs, like how it affected your life going to a HBCU as opposed to going to, a predominantly white university?
Yeah. So for me, okay, so backpedaling to when I first went onto a HBCU campus, that's historically Black colleges and university, I just felt home. It was something about seeing all of these people, these beautiful brown people, and they were dressed impeccably and they were serious. Like they were serious about going to school. It wasn't for us. That's not what I saw. It wasn't just about the parties or the hanging out. Like to me, you saw all these people that were really serious about being better. And it was the culture. It was Wakanda on steroids. Because, I saw somebody post, they were like, yeah, you guys like, Black Panther, that's an HBCU homecoming on steroids every day. It was this feeling of, man, I can do anything. No type of, well, maybe you should just pursue this, or maybe you should just pursue that. It was basically like all of these people, these little mini superheroes. And it was like, man, we can do anything. That was the culture. We can do anything, right? And so for me, it was very empowering being in that atmosphere. The teachers were extremely nourishing. Like it was beyond like that you're just a number. It was beyond that. It was like, man, yeah, the reality of it is, guess what? I am the first person in my family to go to college. Okay, that's real. And what comes along with that? It's a lot at stake if I don't make it. You understand what I'm saying? So they recognize that they're thinking, and we're going to help you make it. So to me, inside of that, it was a different culture. For me, it just felt very warm and filling. And when I look back at it now, I was in school with Will Packer, Rob Hardy, Anika Noni Rose. These people, all of us were in school. Common had just left I think maybe the semester before I got there. So I was around. FAMU was literally like, the cream de la cream, along with Howard. All of the HBCUs are amazing. I don't want to, knock it. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that we were all at school at the same time. And so to me, it's not, I hate when I hear people say it doesn't prepare you for the real world. It super prepares you, because you can live in multiple worlds and you're completely solid with who you are. If you do not know who you are, you're going to have some challenges if you don't know who you are. So I think that for me, when I look back at it, that we're all still great friends. Now it's a huge network base that you have, after you graduate, and the experience, hands down, the experience is something, I have a lot of my friends that they may have gone to. If I had to stay on the track I was on, because I was on this track to Michigan State, no knock, but I was on this track to Michigan State or University of Michigan. I was in a 4-year writing program for University of Michigan. And I just didn't want to go to school with everybody I had been going to school with that whole time. And I felt like I wanted to be around. Again, I wanted that experience. So HBCUs offer you that. It's just a very rich dynamic. And my son will be going to HBCU next year. So
that's great.
HBCU.
Yeah, I love HBCUs. I went to Howard. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is this. Like, I noticed throughout your book, like there's this common theme of fear and how fear can hold people back, and also about how comfort can be an impediment to progress as well. Like when people get too comfortable, they get satisfied with their position and they don't advance. So Can you talk about like fear, how fear and comfort can impede progress, and how do you overcome fear, and how do you get out of your comfort zone to go to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. Fear, you know, that they always, if you've heard the acronym, false evidence appearing real, fear is one of the biggest enablers. They said, you know, I remember hearing, if you want to find the richest place on earth is located at the graveyard, because you have all these people who had all of these things inside of them and they didn't fully manifest. And usually at the root of it is fear of rejection. You know, they get a conversation in their head that it can't happen. Somebody has told them that they're not good enough, so they don't do it. They just don't even try. And so fear is one of the biggest things that stops people from truly becoming who they're called to be. And when you're younger, you have this whole thing of being fearless. You know, I call it childlike faith. It's just like, I can do anything. And I always pray to keep that childlike faith of I can do anything, and not allow it to, even with the challenges, because it's not that challenges don't come. You have to be resilient, but the belief that you can do anything that you set your mind to. Fear is just the opposite of that. It's really a lot of, believe it or not, it's a lot of ego too. You know, it requires a lot of ego to be fearful. People don't look at it that way, but fear is being constantly consumed on why something won't work or something that will happen to you. It is actually associated. Fear and ego are actually associated. So one of the things that is not that I don't get afraid. Oh my God, that's not it. It's how do you handle the fear? You know, what do you do with the fear when it comes? There was a lot of times, there's always been times, you know, that those thoughts come up like, what if, you know, when you think about having children, like my son is about to go off to college. I got all kinds of thoughts associated there. But then how do you navigate that? I'm not even going to try and act like I'm a superhero and say that I'd be able to do it without God, period. That's where the crust of who I am, my foundation, is in a higher belief that if I do surrender my life over, that I'll be guided, regardless if it's hard or I'm afraid or if it's new territory, that in some kind of way that I will be guided and led and always protected. Okay, that's at the core of it. So I can't even get around the fact that, to me, the opposite of fear is love, and God is love. Bam, you know. And so to me, in terms of overcoming fear, that's where I go back to, because it's not that it doesn't come up. It's how do you handle it, and where is it coming from, and how do you push it down, you know, actually when it actually happens. So it's really about like looking at it from the standpoint of how, not that the conversations won't come, how do I rebuttal them and move past them? Because a lot of times the things that we're fearful about are not even real. A lot of people overanalyze everything to the point that they get analysis paralysis and they don't move out. That's really what it is, a fear, especially when it comes to career. They analyze it. They've already shot it down and killed it, didn't give it a chance to live, and they stop. So let's go back to the whole band thing. I was scared. Like, I remember calling my boys that we were all in different colleges and saying, I don't know what I have just gotten myself into. I was just like, listen. Like,
so why were you so scared? What were you scared?
Because it was just a different atmosphere. It was like, first of all, you're this northern girl, you come down south, all these people, they got this whole, like, this ecosystem, right, of how things work. And you are expected to be excellent excellent in playing, in marching. Oh, by the way, you came down there to get a degree, right? So it's this whole idea of the fear was of the unknown. Like, can you really make this band? People don't understand that for me, I was entering such a mammoth of a band, and I was coming from Detroit. It's not a lot of people that's ever made the Marching 100 from Detroit. It's usually the surrounding areas. Well, their band directors went to the school, their aunts and uncles, maybe their mother and father that went to the school, they might have marched in the band. So for them, they kind of came in like knowing this is a culture that they kind of knew. It was completely green to me. And so I walked into a situation where I was immediately challenged to be great. And for the first time, I was just like, I don't know. I felt like I'm not going to quit because I'm from Detroit, is the whole idea. Like, I'm from the D, I'm not quitting. That's what's not happening. But it was this whole thing of, oh my God, like even the upperclassmen in this band were putting out like it was their first day. Can you imagine being in a band of all Michael Jordans, all Beyoncés, all Denzels, right? Everybody's excellent. I mean, you know how intimidating that is? That's fear. That's a fearful situation because you're like, oh crap, like, can I make this? I felt like it was the greatest blessing I could have ever had because it set a bar so high. And it also gave me the story in my head of, if you made this, you can do anything. It was a constant reminder. If you did this, you can do anything. So I would replay that in my head. I was like, if this is as hard as this was, as competitive as this was, if you apply similar things, if you go as hard for what it is that you're trying to reach, again, this concept of transfer of learning of what we learn, you will be successful. I mean, it was literally like this whole thing of, you will be successful if you put the same type of drive. People that win in life, honestly, it's not really the most talented. It's the people that are the most practiced and the most diligent. They just hung out. They just tried harder. They just tried longer. They just didn't quit. So to me, point and drive, and the whole idea of point and drive is, how do you get to the point where you do build that resilience muscle that you get in your head once you find the strategy for what it is that you want, your goal, that you develop a plan so that you do get to your it. That's the biggest thing that it's all about. Your show is New Possibilities. That's my whole thing. Possibility. Like, what is really possible? What is really possible?
So one of your principles is opportunity. And in your book, you talk about this opportunity that you were presented with to work on 8 Mile. So can you tell people about that opportunity and how you almost missed that opportunity and how that feeds into the narrative of your book?
Yeah, so I had just had my son, and I was really in this mindset. I worked up until, literally, I did a photo shoot up until I went into labor. Okay. And then thereafter, it was really about, I was completely in mommy mode. And I got the call to do the film, the first time. And I honestly blew it off. I had these assumptions in my head. Okay, it's going to be a whole lot of rappers. I don't know if I really want to be in that atmosphere. And I cut it off. So the first mistake was that I made a judgment without fully knowing. Okay, I made a judgment, said no. Second time, the call came in. These are from different people. Second time the call came in, I started thinking like, because I'm always very cognizant that, opportunities are coming. It's just not happenstance. So then the second time it came, I thought, maybe I need to look at this. I went and talked to my husband, Curtis, like, what do you think about this? Because at the time, you know, I'm a new mother. I'm still, sorry, this is graphic, breastfeeding. You know, I'm just still really there. Mm-hmm. My husband's like, well, if this is something that you want to do, like, we can make it work. Third time it comes. Okay, Brandi, like, whatever you need to do, if you just basically show up, you got the position. Literally. And I just remember that first day being on that set and just seeing Brittany Murphy over here, Anthony Mackie, who is now like he's a Marvel character, Mekhi Phifer over there in the corner, and just thinking like, what did I just walk into? And realizing how absolutely wrong talking about fear and talking yourself out of something. I was just thinking about how absolutely wrong I was about what I experienced. It was a professional set, groundbreaking. Everybody was very serious about what they were doing, and they knew that this movie was going to be a mammoth. They knew that it was going to be big. So for me, I always look back to that because the opportunity was placed in front of me 3 times. And based on my mindset and the story I was telling myself a story that was not real. And oftentimes that's what we do. We tell ourselves stories that are not real and talk ourselves out of it. That third time came around, thank God it did. And it changed the trajectory of my life. Like after I did that film, the next film I did, I made history. I was the first woman of color to ever be the head of a department in Michigan. I made history. It was based off of that film. And it was just trickery events that happened. I mean, like back to back to back to back, all from that one event. I could have changed my entire life saying no to that. So to me, opportunity is so huge because if you do believe that God is leading you through this path, he's putting these different situations. Sometimes people walk away from opportunities because it looks too much like work. They're like, you know, it could be too challenging or it just seems like too much. You know, I had a lot of excuses of why I wouldn't have taken that job. But when I look at it now, I'm like, it changed my entire life. So opportunity is so huge because if you don't try, you know, you can always back out of something, but you don't ever know how far you could go if you actually took advantage of the opportunities. And that's all about having a clear mind and just having space to be able to receive and recognize the opportunities. Because the thing about it is sometimes we we take on everybody else's baggage. If we're working for a company, we're taking on all of their vision, all of the vision of that company. And so where do we even exist? So by the time the opportunity comes, the opportunity could be somebody invited you to an event and you're dog tired because you have given out everything to everybody, even though you feel like I probably should go to this. And the person that you need to meet is sitting right there at the table that you're supposed to be at. And that was a missed out opportunity because you were exhausted and tired and didn't obey the nudge that you heard to go. And so that could have been something that changed your entire life. My life has been about several opportunities that present themselves, several that I have just chosen to say, well, even if it didn't turn out to be something, let me go ahead and do it. Case in point, funny story. I was working the concession stand for my son's school. We work at this big, huge amphitheater. It's called Verizon Amphitheater. And we work the concession stand. And so somebody that just comes up there just thinks, oh, okay, this is a chick with big hair. She's pretty glam working here with the hot dogs, right? That's what they're thinking. It says a Milton band right here on the thing. So true story. Jackie Reed, right? Do you know who Jackie Reed is? The journalist Jackie Reed. She did BET and she's, you know, popular journalist. True story. She comes up to out of all the counters, she comes to my counter. Now, I speak around the country, and I used to speak with the Tom Joyner Fantastic Voyage, right? she's one of the people that, I don't know if she still is, but she speaks on the radio show. So in my mind, you know, I thought to myself, as she came to, you know, to the window, do I say, you know, hey, you know, we spoke on the same cruise. And I'm like, out of all these people, why is she here? You know, at this particular door. But I didn't say anything. I was like, it's gonna take too much to try and explain this. Let me just give her a pretzel, you know, go on about my business. So afterwards, it was just like, Brandi, here's your opportunity. Out of all the people, why did she come? Come on now, like really? You know, there's a reason why that happened the way that it did. Now, what are you going to do about it? So what I did, she was already my Facebook friend. Isn't that crazy? Because again, you know, all the speaking people, they, you know each other. I just nicely went into her little Facebook DM. Hey, you know, remember the lady with the big hair at the, well, we know each other. We met through, you know, speaking at this particular event. I was there, you know, with my son's band, supporting the band. Hey, I don't believe in coincidences. Let's connect, right? I got a media company. She's okay. She said, I remember you. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's do it. Opportunity. I don't know where that opportunity will go. But what I know is this, that nothing is by happenstance. And you should pursue an opportunity more so than just blowing it off, because you really honestly don't know what can happen.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So there's one other thing. There's one thing that you really mentioned several times in your book, and that's vision boards. Like, you talk about the importance of them. First of all, what is a vision board, and like why is it important? Like, how do you use a vision board? And are there practical examples that you have in your own life of how a vision board actually affected your life for the positive?
Yeah, so vision boards, you know, and vision boards, at one time, vision boards were they were literal. They were like actual boards. But now in technology, a vision board is anything that represents what you want visually. It can be on your phone. I do it on my phone now sometimes. You know, I do still do them actually on boards. But basically, it's about visually seeing the things that you're inspired by or that you want to see happen in your life. That's what a vision board is. And so it can consist of pictures. It can consist of words, affirmations, and situations that you see yourself in. So I'll never forget when I first moved to Atlanta, and I was still doing grooming, but I was transitioning over. And I remember, okay, it's Atlanta, thinking about the people in Atlanta that I wanted to work with, right? And I put on my vision board, Usher was one of the people I put on my vision board. Yeah, I promise you, out the blue, it wasn't Usher, but it was Usher's wife, out the blue, that called me for a particular service that I was offering. And it was like, to me, that was one of the cases when I said, like, this thing is really serious about setting an intention of what it is that you want or what it is that you feel or that you see, and visualizing it and being able to say, and this is my goal, and this is what I believe can happen for me. And with vision boards, it's not about, you have to put the action towards it, but to me, it really is about also surrendering to, and how is this, not being so consumed with how it's going to happen, but that is something that you want and that you see for yourself. And then you working and allowing the opportunities again to happen, that those things end up being fulfilled. But it's the visual representation is so huge. Before I write a book, I wish I had it out right now, but when I first wrote Point and Drive, every time I do a project, I usually make the visual representation of it first. I took a book. I designed the cover. I did design the cover. I took a book and I wrapped it. I went to my husband. I was like, "Can you wrap this book?" And I wrapped the book in that the poster, and then I started writing the book. And then I put the book right in front of me as a visual representation, but the end product ended up being almost page for page the exact same size. And it was, for me, with my projects, it's always about, if you were to look around my home office right now, you would see nothing but pictures and visual representations of what's next. So sometimes I don't have all of the steps out, but I will put the first thing out of what I see. Right now, we're routing a tour for Point and Drive. I'm already very clear about where we're going. I'm almost very clear about almost all of the venues. And then the action happens and it actually becomes real. So for me, with Point and Drive and the whole movement, because we have, I have courses and coaching that go along with it. I don't believe in putting out books and people just read and they can't go any further. I believe that you're supposed to put action to whatever it is that you need to give people a way to do whatever it is that they're doing. So one of the things that I'm really adamant about is taking something from a visual, this is what I want, and actually making it a tangible thing. And the visualization thing and being able to see something that's possible, that word again, is really the key to it actually manifesting. It really is key. For me, oftentimes it's about seeing with your eyes closed. That's extreme faith. It's like, it's not that you necessarily know all of the steps. You just know the next best step. You just know the next best step. And so visually, the visual representation is huge. I think that's one of the reasons why I loved doing in the beginning the beauty and the beauty transformations, because I knew that if you could transform the way someone's hair and their makeup and their clothing, you could transform that, you could put them in a different state. It's huge. The visual representation is huge. So it's not just there, it's really in every other area as well.
Wow, that's deep. So in your book, you mentioned your work with Steve Harvey, and you talked about how you observed him and certain things that you learned while observing him. Can you tell the people what kind of things you learned from that experience? What kind of observations you made?
Yeah. So Steve Harvey, I worked with him multiple times, but when I really started, I feel like I had the most transformative experience with him was when I was working on a show. He had a show that he mirrored his morning talk show, and that was the first time he came out and did a talk, kind of like a talk show format. It was on BET, I believe, BET centric. I was at the end of my career. Like when I say I had hung those brushes up, I was like, I'm done. I had just wrote my first book called The Blended Family Survival Guide. And I was literally about to go on tour. I was changing gears completely. And when I got the call to do the show, it was a matter of, okay, this is too convenient to pass it up. The shooting was right up the street from my house. It was just like everything was in alignment. It was kind of like, just go ahead and do this last one. And again, that whole thing, we're talking about opportunity, right? So the title of that chapter in the book is Act Like a Makeup Artist and Think Like a Mogul. Because I feel like, and that's a play on his book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. I feel like that's what was happening for me in that experience with him. That was months before he made the big transition, when he started coming out with multiple things. It was like he had like 3 shows. That film, his book got turned into a film by Will Packer. There were multiple things right after that show that happened. But what I was watching, again, I was in a different state of mind. I was watching his ecosystem work. So, he was telling jokes, but it was like his business game was immensely strong. There was nothing funny about what he was doing. So he was shooting the show. When they would cut, he was doing deals. He was talking to sponsors. He was maneuvering around his atmosphere. Everything was very methodical. You could tell that. To me, that was the first time I saw somebody who had used the base of a talent, which was telling jokes, being a comedian, and turn it into an enterprise, multiple streams of income. That's what I saw from him. I saw like, wow, okay, he's leveraging. You all think that he has this morning show. That's what you all think. I am seeing all of these different ways that he has taken a gift and talent that he has and leveraged it all these different ways. That's what I saw. And I saw how he was very attentive to the people that were in that team. You know, everybody had a role. Everybody had a role. And he was very attentive to the sponsors versus the person that was over here negotiating this deal. And he was still, you could tell he was exhausted, but he would still come in start every show praying. Whatever, you know, that's how he would start the show, you know. So for me, I was observing that like, okay, you can take something, you can start off with a talent. Mind you, he has had that radio show. He never stopped with that radio show. He continued to have the radio show because he was smart enough to know that this is the core of who I am, right? Most people jump off of something. Oh, I've made this. And so they jump off of it. But he was smart enough to understand that I can take this and leverage it. And this is a marketing tool. Same thing with Tyler Perry. Anybody can say whatever they want to say about Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is completely independent because he owns everything. And he created a niche. And even if he did not have all of the partnerships come in, Tyler Perry would exist. Still, he owns everything and he built his own audience. Same thing with Kevin Hart. Very brilliant. They take one thing and they create their own ecosystem. Whereas some people are like, let me just get on and let me just, you know, jump on and be a part of something that's already existing. They make their own ecosystems. What I saw from Steve Harvey was that he took a talent and an expertise and leveraged it into multiple things. So whatever work he was putting in, it manifested like that next year. That's when he blew up. That's when he had all these different shows and it was just so many things going on. And I'm like, I felt like I was seeing a portion of that being birthed then. And to me, that was really the reward of working on that because I don't know what anybody else was doing. You know, there would be numerous people that came through there and that was all exciting and great. But I was looking at, again, everything else that was going on in that world and saying, oh, that's available. See, a lot of times you just need, going back to ignition moments, you just need to see that one person did it. You just need to see that one person did it. For me, I just need to see one person did it and then I know it's possible. Just a fraction of it. And then I'm like, okay, how do you take that and apply it to your life? That's what I'm thinking. Like, how do you take that? And that was when I said, oh, act like a makeup artist, think like a mogul. Don't just be so excited that you're working with some celebrity. Oh, that's great. Yeah, okay, that's great. How do you transfer that into a business? How do you leverage everything that you've done? How do you leverage all that experience? How many different ways how can you turn that into an empire? You know, so to me, that experience with him showed me that he took the gift of comedy and he had parlayed it into all these arenas. And that was a blessing of working with him.
Wow. Yeah. So you also mentioned in your book the time when you met Beyonce and what you observed in that meeting, and I guess some lessons that you drew from that encounter. So can you share that with the people?
Yeah, B. Like I know her.
Hold me down.
No, I don't know her like that. Okay, I met her one time, but yeah, B. No, I think to me, again, for me, I'm always looking at A lot of people look and they try and duplicate the person. I'm looking at what did the person do to get there. That's the goal. It's never about, you know, people that land in places. It's what they're almost doing when you don't see them. That's going back to the principles of discipline and repetition. The practice. What are they doing that's making them land where they are? So for me, the first time I saw Beyonce, I was doing red carpet reporting for a magazine. They gave me all access, you know, and so I was, first of all, just watching the climate of the rehearsal, how methodical she was. Like, it had to be perfect. You know, her birthday is in September. My birthday is in September. We got that alike, like just perfectionist. It had to be perfect. I felt like once I saw her hit my first encounter was seeing her hit that stage up close. And the fact that she was coming into being a solo artist. She was performing with Jay-Z, who was her boyfriend at the time. And she had this look of hunger in her eyes. It was kind of like everybody else was checking for, you know, what she had on or how she looked or even the music and the band. But what I zeroed in on was the hunger in her eyes to prove to herself that she was a solo artist. And that's what immediately drew me, because I was like, wow, she wants it. And if you still watch Beyonce, there's a hunger behind what she does. It's almost like she's always like trying to outprove her. I feel like herself. There's a hunger there. And I don't think anybody should ever lose that drive. I think that really successful people are still, even the more polished they get, there should always be that undergird of I want it, you know, like I'm trying to best my best, you know. So that's the first time seeing her. And then I was working as a national artist for L'Oreal. And so we did some of her tour, her actual tour, multiple dates of her tour. And I was watching her, Beyonce, the performer. And I was just thinking, like, she's really an entertainer. Like, this is past, she's a good singer, but no, she is really entertaining. And at that time, it was, you know, like, and it still pretty much is a void of people who really entertain. Like, they're actually singing, actually dancing, you know, it's creative. The visuals were there. That was the first time I saw her in concert. So to me, I was impressed because I was like, wow, you know, that she took the time to put that whole thing together, performer. The time of actually meeting her, what impressed me the most about meeting her, and it was something that, again, opportunity, right? I can't even say that it was like I seized the opportunity. I was in a situation where I literally, they put these names on this table. You know, we were all artists. They put these names on this table. They pulled out 2 names, and it was the 2 girls from Detroit. They got it. I lie to you not. It was me and another lady. I promise you. That's the blessing of Detroit. They were like, come on with us. You guys are going to meet Beyonce. We were like, what? Like really? You know, it was very fast. It was a movie. It was a movie. You know, it was a movie. You know, we were on these golf carts. In my mind, the entrepreneur in me is thinking like, oh, how am I going to connect with her? I have to be memorable. I got to be memorable. How am I going to be memorable to me? Right? And at the time, I was working with a girls group who had been in a movie with her. And so their mom, they were contemplating them going on tour and doing an opening act for her. So their mom had been sending these designs and these sketches. And I was kind of looking at it from the aspect of makeup and hair and how it will work. You know, I never met Miss Tina, but, you know, shout out to Miss Tina. We was kind of almost connected. So I had that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hit her from that because I know she knows who they are. And that's going to be my connective point. So anyway, you know, we go in and you know, we meet her. And the first thing that was so amazing to me was that I felt like she was more nervous than we were. Like, it was really like this whole idea that, to me, the humility that she had was, wow, people want to see me. Wow. Like, you know, to me, that was big. That was major to me because I was like, she is, at the end of the day, Beyonce is Beyonce knows. She's Carter now. But at the time, Beyonce knows. At the end of the day, she's somebody who had a dream, worked her butt off to get there, and is still about trying to deliver excellence and best her best. Regardless of what anybody wants to say about her, they can't deny that she is really a hard worker. So to me, in that regard, it just made me say that, wow, first of all, I felt like she was just like me. We both just want to be, you know, like live out our passion. And the humility she had separated the Beyonce from the stage to the Beyonce, the person. Okay. And in the book, I talk about, you know, give the performance of your life. At the end of the day, whether you're servicing a client, you're working for a company, it's still going to boil down to performance. How are you going to best do whatever it is that you do? Our stages look different. Our stages look different of how we can perform. Some people are literally right in front of people, and sometimes people are in the background, but you're still performing. How excellent are you going to make that performance? And I think, to me, what I saw from her was that at the end of the day, first of all, she was humble. And second of all, it was all about, like, she was still living the dream. I felt like she was still probably that little girl that was living the dream, that decided she was going to live out her passion. And she still wanted it every time. And if you look at her now, I was just looking at some footage that comes through the IG feed. And if you look at her now, she looks hungry every time. Like, you know what I'm saying? She looks like, you know, Jay-Z is kind of sitting back a little bit, but she, to me, looks like she's always trying to prove something. I think that's still kind of good to have that. I'm not upset. I'm not upset with someone who still has that bite there to say, like, yeah, and when you all leave, you all will be talking about me tomorrow. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh. Yeah. So also you mentioned how success is more than just about you as an individual. It's about empowerment. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think you touched on it earlier, but can you go into more detail about success and how it's linked to bettering the community and empowering people?
Yeah, when you think about success, to me, success, first of all, it should be holistic. Like, I feel like you shouldn't sacrifice, especially when you start talking about having a family. Like, I don't feel like you get there by all means necessary. That there still is some sense success is defined differently for different people, and especially at different times of their lives. But to me, I get the greatest joy from knowing, first of all, that there are gifts and talents and ideas that God has given me specifically, I feel like, to orchestrate. And I am successful when I am living those things out and in some type of way giving back those gifts and talents to others. I feel like it's selfish when you don't fulfillingly manifest who you're called to be out of fear or whatever that is. I feel that true success is always attached to other people. It's really about what is the solution that you're solving for somebody? What is the gift that you're depositing in the earth? In the first principle, I talk about the 7 Ps, a point and drive. And it really is leading someone from taking your passion to the place of going through these 7 Ps where you actually eventually get to the point where you're paying it forward. Like, I feel like true success positions you in a place where you're able to really pay it forward to the next person. Like, they're not that they should not experience or go through what they need to go through to become who they need to be, because everybody has to put in the work, but that you're in a position where you can help other people be successful. And it will happen in different ways. Sometimes it's in relationships, you know, like I have a lot of young women that automatically draw to me. And I'm grateful for that. What is it that I can deposit, you know, into them from all of that experience? Like, there's so many people sitting on so much experience and they're not sharing it. Like, really, the people that have a great amount of knowledge, they're the ones that are silent. And the people who have not so much knowledge, they're the ones doing all the talking. And I feel like, you know, success includes other people. And we have all these experiences, and we should step into our greatness. Point and drive, from what I was told, people have tried to tell the story of the Florida A&M Marching 100 for years. People have been talking about they were going to do a movie or whatever about the film, about the band, because it's an iconic band. And then here I come along the way and actually do it. It was really like, and it took a period of time for it to come out, from 2013 to actually 2016. And when I remember when the trailer first dropped, I remember this person telling me, oh, well, now I see why it took you so long to do it, because I guess you did it at a different level. Like, that's is that a smack in the face and a compliment at the same time? Like, but it was the idea of, at the end of the day, I was like, well, guess who didn't do it? Like, while everybody else was talking, whatever else y'all want to say, whatever way that you want to put this, while everybody else was talking, I heard to do something and I did it. And I did it with my own money. I did it with my own elbow grease. I did it with my own time. To be honest with you, I did it with my own tears. There was a lot of crying that went forth to birth that film. And people will never know what I had to give up to do it. So it's basically like, when you see that, but then when I go and I start touring the film, I see people who are 9, and then I see people who are 94, and they're all having these levels of emotion. I see people who are now, the young lady right now that made history is the first female drum major at Florida A&M University. Somebody reminded me of this the other day. They were like, isn't that the young lady that stood up in your screening in Atlanta and said that she gets why her parents told her, she understands why her parents have been, were both members, and they're my brothers and sisters as well, of the Marching 100. But sometimes when your parents tell you something is great, you're like, yeah, you're just telling me it's something great. Mm-hmm. But they love the band, and they were, posturing her for that. She told me in those 90 minutes, she gets it now. And she was excited. That was the summer before she went down to FAMU to try out for the band. And now she just made history. So my thought was, all the tears were worth it. All the haters were worth it. All of the money spent, the hours, the prayers that went forth, all of it was worth it, because I feel like that was something I was called to do. And to me, success is seeing all those people be touched and changed and moved. Like, that's success, so that is going to help people for generations to come. The book is an extension of it. The book is meant to be the next tier of it, like putting all of the pieces together, so part of my contribution to the earth has been, learn something and then give it back out, but give it back out in ways that people can apply it. It's applicable to their lives, in a very practical way. So that's success. I mean, to me, that feels like success, because I feel like I'm doing what I'm called to do. My challenge to people with Point and Drive for Life is, what are you playing small with? The hashtag I keep using is play big. It's a play on words. Like, we played in the band. I need you to play big in your life. What is it? Like, I'm not saying go, we're not all the Beyoncés. I'm not saying that. What is your big?
Right.
What is your big? Are you playing big in it? That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah. So we're closing out. So I just have a couple of more questions for you. What kind of advice do you have to offer someone that's interested in writing a book? A lot of people had an idea of writing a book, but they don't make it manifest. So what would you advise them to do?
So I tell people, there's so many ways to get a book out. Like, everybody has a book in them. I'm almost like, I feel like everybody, I'm so excited because my mother, who just turned 75, is writing a book right now.
Oh, wow.
And I'm so excited about it. She's like, Brandi, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, yep. And I'm going to help you tour it and speak about it and, speak and everything. She has a story inside of her. And so I always tell people, like, just start. So it's so many different ways you can start. You have your phone that you can begin talking into. You have video that if you felt like I need to be in front of somebody just talking this out, that you could start talking it out. You have journals where you can just start writing out things, and later on it shapes and it forms into an actual book. You just need to, when you start talk about writing a book, you need to, first of all, commit to the amount of time you're going to allocate. I don't care if it's 30 minutes a week. You need to, if you say it's going to be 30 minutes a week, that you buckle down and you commit to it, right? If it's 1 hour a day and it means, or, 30 minutes a day, and you say, I'm going to get up 30 minutes earlier, I'm going to go to sleep 30 minutes later, that you stick to it, because progression over time, it will end up being a book. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's about, you have got to get to the space where you can dump the information out and then get to the place where you organize it. But I just encourage people to start, like literally just start. And right now, it's so many different ways that you can actually write a book. You have different ways that you can deliver it, from ebooks to audio books. Right now, there is no excuse for people to not get that book out of them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are, judgmental on themselves, because back in the day, it was like, well, you're only credible if you get this big bookseller to buy your book and all that stuff. All of those things are like done now. It's really about, what is the message? What is the story that you hear inside of you? And how do I get it out? Now, of course, it's all kind of marketing, just different things, because to me, books, even though books are a way of telling our story, books should, if they're going to really be successful and be able to be distributed, you should have an idea of how you're going to market it. Books introduce your concept or your credibility or your passion to the world. So for me, you should be strategic with how you write the book. And, there's book coaching, and it's so much information. I mean, I coach people on how to write books. But the idea of it is to get it out and then begin organizing the book and just start, because you would never know how many people you could potentially bless or help, with that idea. I mean, my first book, I've written 4 now. My first book was called The Blended Family Survival Guide. I wrote The Blended Family Survival Guide because when I married my husband, found the love of my life, he came with 2 boys, 2 different baby mamas. I was trying to figure out, I started looking for information. All the psychologists had never been in a situation, so it was very, I said, no, that's not solving the problem. So everywhere I looked, I could not find a solution. And then finally, it was just like, one of my favorite sayings is, when you say they need to do something, the they is you. The they is you. Wow. If you hear the they is you. You're supposed to do it. Most people ignore that part. So I was like, there needs to be a book on this. Like, people need to know how to navigate through this. Like, how do you navigate through it? And, we did our 18 years, and beyond. It's been like, the boys are like 27 and 24 now. And I had a sensitivity for blended families because my father had been married twice. Like, I was the kid. So for me, I was the kid. I understood how that kid feels when they just want to see their parent for that weekend. They're not necessarily checking for the female. They want to spend time with their dad. I was her. So for me, I was just like, okay, I feel like it needs to be a guide for this. And I wrote it. Every book that I've written, it was like, man, they need to know this. When I lost 80 pounds, I wrote a book about it. I was like, man, people keep asking me how I did it. Write a book and coach people on it. When I did Look the Part to Get the Role, is a visual branding guide. That was my methodology of my grandmother used to say, if you don't look the part, you know, like you got to look the part to get the role. That was something that older people used to say. It's like, man, that's really the truth. That was my philosophy in visual branding, that perception was real and that you have to present yourself for that. So that was a part of my coaching and consulting. I turned it into a guide. So I'm just saying that people are operating now. They probably already have the books inside of them. They just need to structure them, and the world needs it. So I'm a big advocate for people writing books, because I feel like everybody has a book inside of them.
And so what advice would you have for someone who's interested in making a film, since you've done that as well?
Woo! I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. Like the film part. Well, first of all, let me just say this. In today's society with cameras, camera phones, like all the independent tools that you have, there's no excuse. There's just no excuse to not do it. Now, I'm not going to say that it doesn't take a lot of effort. Like, to me, Point and Drive, when I finished Point and Drive, it was so funny because they had me come and speak at Florida A&M's home. It was a graduation. They have it for every year, you know, so I think it was a class of 66 maybe. And part of the goodie bag that they gave me was a graduation hat and a robe. I was like, I earned this. Like, I graduated this year. I crossed this year. I felt like I had pledged again. I graduated this year. Like, yeah, like I earned this here. Like, this was another school for me. So in filmmaking, especially documentary filmmaking, it's a lot of moving pieces to it, but the beauty of it is that you're telling a story about real people, you know? And so to me, it's never been a better time to do it. I did it the non-conventional way. You know, I started off with the whole idea of, oh, I'm gonna, you know, because I was into production. So I started off with, oh, I'm gonna sell this to a network. We're gonna walk the red carpet and then this. I'm going to the Oscars. I'm entering Sunday. I did all of that stuff only to find out, oh, if you don't know somebody in these industries, they ain't checking for you. I don't care if it's an excellent product. If you're not in that world there, they're not checking for you. So guess what, Brandi? Create your own. That was the mindset. That's why I did Point and Drive the way they did. I got 3 television offers for Point and Drive. Some of them wanted me to compromise significantly the message. And that goes back to principle 9, which is values, which talks about who and what do you stand for. So for me, at the time, there was the whole incident that the drum major had gotten killed at Florida A&M University. And as a member of the Marching 100, they wanted me to completely sensationalize that and focus everything around it. And I thought, like, okay, you're talking about a band that's been in existence since 1946 and has done all of these things, and you want to sensationalize and only focus here. I understand that it is huge, you know, what happened, but I've got to be able to look myself in the mirror and really actually like the person that's looking back at me. So if that means that I have to say no to this network, if it means that I have to say no to this money and do this particular way myself, on my own, I'll do that. I had choices that I had to make. People don't understand that, like how people came at me for this project. And that was values. It was like, what are you going to concede to? You know, you love these people. Like, you know, there's some things, nothing was perfect. Tell the truth. But at the same time, we have to me, independent filmmaking and is all about shaping narrative. You get the opportunity to tell a narrative. I got the opportunity to expose people to what band really means and what HBCU, the culture is. That was a story that I lived, and I was able to tell, I was responsible to tell that narrative. out there. To me, the beauty of filmmaking is that if you have a thought, if you have an idea, if you have an experience that you can visually see a story around, to be able to share that, to transport people in that 60 to 90 minutes into a completely different space is amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, when I saw it happen, I was just like brought to tears every screening, because I was just like, oh my God. I edited that entire film myself. I wasn't an editor. I figured it out. God showed me how to do it. I'm just saying all that to say that you have a responsibility as a filmmaker. You have an idea, a concept that you feel like that story needs to be told. And if you're committed enough to go through the channels to tell it, the reward of it, just the reward of it lasts forever and ever and ever and ever. So in terms of a filmmaker, I would say if you want to make a film, like, just start doing it. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I had done a lot of planning for Point and Drive. It wasn't until somebody pissed me off, you know, people that were making promises and they pissed me off enough. I was just like, I'm not waiting on you. I'm just about to figure this out. Mm-hmm. And I had to go and figure it out, honestly. Thank God I had been interning in studios and I had been around it all my life. So that in terms of that, and it was a story that was very intimate to me. So I knew that story, and the people that were a part of Point and Drive, like, you know, I really was like very prayerful as to the people whose voices would be included. Because to me, I was just like, okay, each person here is telling this story, even though it was something that was in my head. They're sharing this part of the story, and you have a responsibility to put this message into the earth. It was like, you know, about that. So to me, you know, if you're doing it to blow up, you know, or for money or any of that, I kind of feel like that's the wrong mindset to go into, especially documentary filmmaking. It's a story to be told. There's a story to be told, and you're committed to telling that story to impact or shape culture in some kind of way, right? So to me, it starts there. It starts with, why are you doing what you're doing? And then being able to, you know, anything is researchable at this point. I mean, YouTube University, right? Books. My father said, anything you want to learn, you can learn in the book. Like, there's so many reasons why something can happen for you in terms of filmmaking. So it boils down to you actually honestly doing it, because I didn't start getting traction when I was waiting on people to help me. Everything was delayed. It didn't progress till I just said, screw you. I'm about to figure this out. Let's just go. Let's go. And I started putting movement to it. And then the momentum came. And even after I finished it, and I had all these hours of footage, and I was still kind of waiting on somebody, because I had never produced or directed, and I was still kind of waiting on them. It still didn't work then. It was just like, no, you go and do, you go and do this. And every time that I committed to making the movement, to making the project move, that's when I saw the most success. And when I was waiting on other people, just because I hadn't done it before, I was waiting on other people. It was just like, no, you got the vision. You got the story. Go tell the story. Go tell the story. And I think at the end of the day, that's, to me, filmmaking. I don't care. My friend who, is a great executive producer for television, she said, Brandi, most people don't get to do what you do until they've won like an Oscar or something. Then they go do their passion project. She's like, I admire you because you started off there. My thought is, I don't ever want to leave it. Like, I don't ever want to do a project that I'm not passionate about, right, for any reason. I would rather, Robert Townsend, he made the 5 Heartbeats. Like, as far as I'm concerned, give me a 5 heartbeat. Give me something that is iconic, that people will always remember, and that they know every line to the movie, and that it impacted them in some kind of way. Give me those projects. They might be less, then all these other types of things, like I want quantity over quality. And I want to shift culture. Like, how did it move you? How did it impact you? So that's, to me, at the core of filmmaking. Somebody else might look at it different, but I do everything, you know, I do it I do it basically how I hear it and I feel it and it works. And so that's what I do. So I don't know what anybody else feels about filmmaking, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not doing it if I'm not passionate about it. That's why the first principle in Point and Drive is passion.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. How can people purchase your book? And if they want to see your film, how can they see that?
Yeah, so they can go to www.pointandriveforlife.com, and that's where they can get the book. We are starting in January. We're going to be going on a book tour and speak. It'll be a book tour and speaking. There's different events that we're going to have, from the book signings to actual workshops. And then we have what we call the experience, which is a hybrid of the film, the book, and a speaking opportunity where it's the full immersion in it. And we're doing that across the country. We have 10 different cities slated for it right now, where we're going. And so that's how they can experience Point and Drive if they want to actually see it live and experience it and learn from it. Because again, Point and Drive is a book, but I want people to be able to take it and now take like a course or be able to, in some kind of way, move forward on what it is. I don't want them to just read the book, oh, I'm inspired. I want you to move forward on it. If you visit Point and Drive Movie, you're going to see the full span of the movie as well. And then brandimitchell.com, myname.com, is where you'll see like any type of coaching and consulting that goes along with this. Because again, Point and Drive is the foundation of everything I do to get people into their passion and to get actual businesses around their passion. Okay. So my thing is, if you come to me, you're going to end up getting pushed out the fear thing and moving into actualizing, whether it be writing that book or doing the film or coming up or getting a promotion, like whatever that is. I'm a certified coach too. So whatever that is, I push people, like provoke. I call it provoke. I provoke people to explore the possibilities in their lives. So yeah, they can find me, brandimitchell.com, pointandriveforlife.com. They can get the book. I encourage everybody to get the book. We do bundles of books, because a lot of times what we're finding is groups are taking them and doing whole little book studies on them, because they know that there's so many exercises inside of the books. So of course, colleges and universities and stuff like that, leadership groups as well, I speak there on this methodology. I'm kind of like a unconventional facilitator, teacher.
So other than your tour, do you have any new projects coming up anytime soon? What can we look out for to expect next?
I'm gonna be honest with you. My biggest project is getting my son through those 8 SATs, accepted into Florida A&M University, and across that doggone stage. That's my focus. I'm so laser focused on him right now, I promise you. Like, these next 90 days are critical for me of getting him, across the finish line. That's why I said success will look different at different times in your life. Success for me right now is making sure my son is across that little finish line and in college. That's my number one goal. But yeah, my next thing is right now, our biggest focus is routing this tour, because we're kicking off mid-January, right after the holidays. So my biggest thing right now is establishing partnerships and routing the tour where it makes the most sense. So we're doing Detroit, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, of course, Los Angeles, Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, Tallahassee, and London is on my vision board. Talk about vision board. I want to go to London, but those are the other places, are the places that we're going. And then in the summertime, we're doing leadership seminars with a lot of the bands. We'll be doing leadership seminars with the high school bands, but also we're looking to do some with the collegiate bands. Just really trying to, the other thing about, you know, college, people talk about, you know, going to college, that's great, but just really making sure that you get a major and you go out into something that you really actually want to do. And so I'm really passionate about teaching people, like, to really hone in on what you're passionate about and making sure that it's something that you enjoy as well, and that it's monetizable. So that's what I'm doing next. My whole thing is getting Corey across the finish line. As a mom, that's success to me. That's success to me.
I hear you.
And then routing the tour, because it's going to be extensive. We're doing a whole Black History Month tour at multiple venues, and then January, February, March are the peak months. And so right now we're going into partnerships with organizations, and then again in the summertime we got a whole nother, the leadership arm of it. So that's what we're really doing. And I'm sure it's a lot of surprises in between that. I keep myself open for opportunities. All kinds of things happen, you know, inside of that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again for doing this interview. I truly appreciate it. I think this was one of the best interviews I've had on this channel. You provided a lot of information that a lot of people are going to be able to use. And again, I encourage everyone to buy the book. You know, it's a great book. It's an easy read, very inspirational. Again, thanks. With that, I'm going to say peace and blessings to the audience. Be blessed.